everyone, welcome back to another episode of What Happened. Today we're diving into one of the most spectacular falls from grace in modern royal history. And honestly, this story has everything: international scandal, powerful connections, terrible decisions, and consequences that literally changed the British monarchy forever. We're talking about Prince Andrew, the man who went from being a decorated war hero and beloved royal to becoming what many consider the most disgraced member of the British royal family in living memory. This isn't just another celebrity scandal. This is the story of how one man's association with Jeffrey Epstein managed to bring down a prince, split a family, and force a king to make one of the most dramatic decisions in royal history. So buckle up, because we're about to explore how Prince Andrew went from Randy Andy to royal outcast, and why his story perfectly captures everything that's wrong with privilege, power, and accountability in the 21st century. Let me start with where Andrew was before it all went wrong, because understanding his position makes his fall even more dramatic. Prince Andrew was born in 1960, the third child and second son of Queen Elizabeth II. Unlike his older brother Charles, who was always destined for the throne, Andrew got to be the spare, which in royal terms meant he could have a relatively normal life while still enjoying all the privileges of being a prince. And for most of his early life, that's exactly what happened. Andrew became a naval officer, serving with distinction during the Falklands War in 1982. He flew helicopters in combat, earned the respect of his fellow officers, and became known as a genuine war hero. The British public loved him for it. Here was a prince who didn't just cut ribbons and make speeches. He actually served his country in battle. The press nicknamed him Randy Andy because of his active social life and string of high-profile girlfriends. But in the 1980s and 90s, that was seen as charming rather than scandalous. He married Sarah Ferguson in 1986 in a fairy tale wedding, had two daughters, Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, and seemed to be living the perfect royal life. Even after his divorce from Sarah in 1996, Andrew maintained his position as a respected member of the royal family. He took on the role of Britain's special representative for international trade and investment, a position that saw him traveling the world promoting British business interests. By all accounts, he was good at the job, using his royal status to open doors and facilitate deals. But here's where the story takes its first dark turn, because it was through his work as a trade envoy that Andrew first encountered the man who would ultimately destroy his reputation, Jeffrey Epstein. Most accounts suggest they were introduced by Ghislaine Maxwell sometime in 1999. At the time, Epstein was a mysterious financier with unlimited wealth and connections to powerful people worldwide. To Andrew, Epstein seemed exactly like the kind of person a trade envoy should know: wealthy, well-connected, potentially useful for British business. Epstein had homes in New York, Palm Beach, and his own Caribbean island, throwing lavish parties attended by politicians and celebrities. What Andrew didn't know, or chose to ignore, was that Epstein's wealth came from unclear sources, and his properties were allegedly being used for the systematic abuse of underage girls. The friendship between Andrew and Epstein developed over several years. Flight logs show Andrew traveled on Epstein's private jet, stayed at his various properties, and hosted him at royal residences. Photos from the time show them together at parties and social events, looking relaxed and friendly. But in 2008, Epstein was arrested on charges related to sexual abuse of minors, pleading guilty and serving just 13 months. Instead of distancing himself, Andrew continued the relationship. In December 2010, he was photographed with Epstein in New York's Central Park, one of the most damaging photos in royal history. Andrew claimed he went to end the friendship face-to-face, but this became increasingly hard to believe as more details emerged about their continued contact. But the real bombshell came in 2015 when Virginia Giuffre publicly named Prince Andrew as one of the powerful men connected to Epstein's criminal network. Giuffre alleged that she was trafficked by Epstein and that Andrew was involved in these illegal activities on 3 occasions when she was 17, in London, New York, and on Epstein's Island. The allegations were explosive. Here was a member of the British royal family being accused of participating in Epstein's criminal enterprise. Giuffre provided specific details about the encounters. Most damaging was a photograph showing Andrew with his arm around young Giuffre, with Maxwell in the background, seeming to corroborate her claims about meeting him. Andrew's initial response to these allegations was to deny them completely while largely staying out of the public eye. But as the Epstein scandal continued to grow, and as more victims came forward with their stories, the pressure on Andrew to provide a more detailed explanation became impossible to ignore. The decision to grant a television interview would prove to be the single worst mistake of Andrew's life. In November 2019, he sat down with BBC's Emily Maitlis for what was supposed to be an opportunity to clear his name and put the allegations to rest. Instead, it became a masterclass in how not to handle a crisis. The interview was a disaster. Andrew came across as arrogant and lacking empathy for Epstein's victims. He claimed he couldn't sweat due to a medical condition from the Falklands War. He insisted he was at Pizza Express in Woking during one alleged encounter. Most damaging, he showed no sympathy for victims, focusing on how the scandal affected him personally. The public reaction was brutal. Social media exploded with mockery. The interview failed completely to clear his name. It made him look more guilty and unsympathetic. Within days, Andrew announced he was stepping back from public duties. Organizations began distancing themselves, with universities and charities ending associations. The damage was immediate and irreversible. In 2021, Giuffre filed a lawsuit in New York seeking damages. Andrew tried to dismiss the case, but a judge ruled it could proceed. Faced with potential deposition under oath, Andrew settled for millions in February 2022 without admitting wrongdoing. The settlement might have ended the legal proceedings, but it did nothing to restore Andrew's reputation. If anything, it reinforced the perception that he was guilty and had simply paid to make the problem go away. The damage to his position within the royal family was severe and immediate. In January 2022, just weeks before the settlement was announced, Queen Elizabeth II stripped Andrew of his military affiliations and royal patronages. More significantly, she confirmed that he would no longer use the style His Royal Highness in any official capacity, essentially removing him from the working royal family while allowing him to keep his titles. The timing was particularly humiliating, because it came during the year of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, a celebration of her 70 years on the throne. Instead of being able to participate fully in the festivities, Andrew was relegated to the shadows, appearing only briefly at his mother's funeral later that year. But even this wasn't the end of Andrew's troubles. Throughout 2023 and 2024, new details about his relationship with Epstein continued to emerge. Documents released as part of ongoing legal proceedings revealed the extent of their communications and the frequency of their meetings, contradicting Andrew's claims that they were only casual acquaintances. The situation became even more complicated when it emerged that Andrew had continued to live at Royal Lodge, a 30-room mansion on the Windsor estate, despite no longer being a working royal. Reports suggested he was paying only a token rent of 1 peppercorn per year for the property, effectively living rent-free at taxpayers' expense while being financially supported by his mother. King Charles, who had inherited both the throne and the Andrew problem when he became king in September 2022, was reportedly frustrated by his brother's refusal to accept a more modest living arrangement. The new king was trying to modernize and streamline the monarchy, and having a disgraced brother living in a palace while contributing nothing to royal duties was exactly the kind of excess he wanted to eliminate. The pressure on Andrew intensified dramatically in October 2025 with the publication of Virginia Giuffre's posthumous memoir, Nobody's Girl. Giuffre had tragically died by suicide in April 2025, but her book provided new and devastating details about her interactions with Andrew and other powerful men in Epstein's circle. In the memoir, Giuffre described Andrew as believing that having sex with me was his birthright and provided graphic details about their alleged encounters. The book's publication sparked a new wave of outrage and calls for Andrew to face further consequences for his actions. Perhaps even more damaging was the revelation of a previously unknown email that Andrew had sent to Epstein in February 2011. The email, which came to light through legal proceedings, showed Andrew telling Epstein to keep in close touch and that they were in this together, directly contradicting his claims that he had ended all contact with Epstein in 2010. The email was signed A.H.R.H., the Duke of York, K.G., and sent from Andrew's official royal email address, making it impossible for him to deny its authenticity. It provided clear evidence that Andrew had lied about when he ended his relationship with Epstein, undermining his credibility even further. Faced with this new evidence and the continued public outcry, Andrew made the decision in October 2025 to voluntarily give up his remaining titles and honors. In a statement, he announced that he would no longer use the title Duke of York or any of his other noble titles, saying the continued accusations were distracting from the work of the royal family. But even this dramatic gesture wasn't enough for King Charles. On October 30th, 2025, Buckingham Palace announced that the king had initiated a formal process to strip Andrew of his remaining royal titles, including the title of prince that he had held since birth. It was the first time since 1919 that a member of the royal family had been stripped of the title of prince or princess. The announcement also confirmed that Andrew would be evicted from Royal Lodge and forced to move to more modest accommodations. The palace statement was unusually harsh, saying the measures were deemed necessary despite Andrew's continued denials, and expressing sympathy for victims and survivors of any and all forms of abuse. The impact was staggering. Andrew lost his royal allowance, security protection, military honors, and succession position. His daughters faced watching their father's public disgrace while maintaining their own royal positions. The financial costs were massive, losing over $1 million annually in allowances and security funding. The scandal reinforced public skepticism about royal privilege and raised questions about the monarchy's future. King Charles's decisive action protected the crown's integrity while demonstrating the balance between family loyalty and institutional responsibility. The international reaction was equally significant. Virginia Giuffre's family issued a statement calling Andrew's punishment "vindication for our sister and survivors everywhere," while victims' rights advocates praised King Charles for taking decisive action. The case became a symbol of how powerful men could finally be held accountable for their associations with sexual predators, even if they couldn't be prosecuted criminally. But perhaps the most important aspect of Andrew's story is what it reveals about the culture of privilege and entitlement that allowed him to make such catastrophically bad decisions for so long. From his initial association with Epstein through his disastrous BBC interview to his final disgrace, Andrew consistently demonstrated a belief that his royal status should protect him from consequences. The Pizza Express defense, the claim about being unable to sweat, the continued relationship with Epstein after his conviction, all of these suggest a man who genuinely believed that being a prince made him immune from the kind of scrutiny that ordinary people would face. His downfall wasn't just about bad associations or poor judgment, it was about the fundamental disconnect between royal privilege and modern accountability. The Andrew scandal also highlighted the changing nature of public discourse in the digital age. Social media played a crucial role in amplifying the voices of Epstein's victims and making it impossible for the royal family to simply wait for the scandal to blow over. The combination of investigative journalism, legal proceedings, and viral social media content created a perfect storm that no amount of palace PR could weather. Today, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor lives in relative obscurity, stripped of titles and privileges that once defined him. He's expected to move to the king's Sandringham estate, a dramatic come-down for someone who once lived in palaces. His story serves as a cautionary tale about unchecked privilege and the importance of accountability. It demonstrates that even princes face consequences when they harm vulnerable people, representing a changing society where privilege alone can't escape scrutiny. The victims, including Virginia Giuffre, showed incredible courage speaking out against powerful men. Their persistence ultimately brought down a prince and proved no one is untouchable. That's what happened to Prince Andrew, from war hero to royal outcast, because he couldn't distinguish between networking and enabling. His story represents the end of an era where privilege could shield people from consequences. Thanks for watching this episode, guys. The Prince Andrew scandal is one of those stories that really makes you think about power, accountability, and how society is changing. What struck me most while researching this was how many chances Andrew had to do the right thing, to distance himself from Epstein, to show empathy for the victims, to take responsibility for his poor judgment, and how he chose wrong every single time. What do you think about the way this whole situation was handled? Did King Charles make the right decision in stripping his brother of his titles, or should family loyalty have taken precedence? And more importantly, what does this scandal tell us about the future of institutions like the monarchy in an age of increased accountability? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and notification bell for more deep dives into the stories that shaped our world. I'll catch you in the next episode. And remember, In the modern world, nobody is too powerful to face consequences for their actions.